Hello, I'm Fred Davies with The Wholesome Life, and today I want to talk to you about the skeletal system. The skeletal system is so complex, so many bones, and the knee bones connected to the leg bone, and the leg bones connect to the ankle bones connect to the foot bone. Kind of like that song that talks about it, maybe from your childhood. The problem that I've found, if it's not broken bones, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's where those connections are. It's where the cartilage has gotten weakened, or it's no longer slick, or maybe it's a torn meniscus or a torn rotator cuff, which is all cartilage. And those things can be extremely painful. The pain is so bad from them. And there are so many parts, but how difficult is it to clear up that pain and to actually rebuild those broken or damaged pieces? It's actually not too difficult. You just need the right materials. You need to remove the harmful materials, maybe things you're taking in that would create damage, and then be consistent in bringing in the right materials in the right amounts. And they actually rebuild pretty quickly. A few months and you'll feel like you're new again. So let's take a look at some of the potential damages so you know that we're talking about any of the skeletal system things and where they connect. The back even, slipped or herniated discs, or even scoliosis, an S-curve in the back. Whichever way that S-curve is, I've seen it sideways, I've seen it front and back. Those rebuild really very rapidly. And you can ask me about specific experiences that clients have had if you need to, if scoliosis is something you've had, or slipped discs, or those kind of things is something that you're presently pained with. Those actually rebuild very fast. We'll walk through the materials to rebuild them in just a few minutes here. We do want to talk about why those things are painful, because maybe you or someone you love has had a painful shoulder or knee or toe or hip. And how does the bone, the ligament, and the cartilage, and some things that we don't always think about as cartilage, like the socket that fits into in the hip or the knee or the shoulder, how does that work? And how do we get damage in that connection from either inflammation or from calcification? Now, maybe you or a loved one has had arthritis of some kind. There are different symptoms on rheumatoid arthritis and on osteoarthritis. If it's rheumatoid arthritis, which is inflammation, then there's pain or aching in more than one joint, stiffness in more than one joint, tenderness and swelling in more than one joint, weight loss, fever, fatigue, tiredness, weakness. Those are all inflammation symptoms. And inflammation is caused by too much acid in the environment, in the body, in the food and drink. And that's something that can quickly change. You can clear out inflammation in your body just by learning what to eat, what to drink, and by changing those few things, using your muscle testing and eating only temple quality foods and drink. And then taking the few things that clear out the damage that's already done. And some of the things that we'll outline, you can find out what's needed with your muscle testing to take out that damage. Now, osteoarthritis is different. And you remember, I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe, but you might be using those terms just because those are the terms that are used by the community at large. Osteo means bone or calcification deposits. And in this case, It's a lack of having the right kind of calcium in the diet, the right kind of plant-based calcium in the food. Other types of calcium do not work. They leave calcification deposits in the body. And too much acid, for some people, while it causes inflammation, for other people, it actually creates calcification that can end up being kidney stones, arthritis, bone spurs, or the like. So symptoms of osteoarthritis include pain in joints that might hurt after movement. In other words, it's grating bone on bone, or a bone spur is cutting into and making it very painful. It might be tenderness, loss of flexibility, that grating sensation or creaking in your knee or other is actually created by damaged cartilage or lack of cartilage completely where it's touching each other. And like my own, when I damaged my knee and shredded the cartilage, tore the meniscus, and tore both interior ligaments, the knee's not staying in place anymore. And when I moved my knee, I would hear it'd grate both ways, and you just feel it rumbling in there, and that would cause swelling and a lot of pain. That was what helped me go looking for the right answers, is that pain. And I'm sure you've heard that story again, but I'll summarize it quickly. Once I'd found the right answers, I applied the things I'm just going to show you now for just 6 weeks, and pain of 6-year-old injury was cleared in 6 weeks, completely rebuilt. That was 24 years ago, and still today, my knee feels like it's brand new. I have no pain in it. I can squat down, pick up things, I can stand up, I can run, I can walk, I can bike ride, I can do anything, hiking, anything I want to do with it, and still it stays in place and there's no pain. And these materials rebuilt that meniscus, just like it'll rebuild a torn rotator cuff, it'll rebuild the cartilage in between the ribs. Whatever that pain is, whatever joint is painful, it will rebuild. These things will also work on carpal tunnel syndrome, where it's got a tightening of the space. It'll work on damaged back. These are materials that work for anything skeletal structural, and it's not difficult. So I have had so many clients say, oh, my knees hurt, my shoulders hurt, my hips hurt, whatever, I'm going to go have them replaced. Well, let's talk about what the principle is here. Should you have it replaced, or should you repair it? Well, do replace it, but replace it naturally with materials that replace it naturally, like I did, and like so many of my clients have done. You don't have to be the master mechanic. You don't have to know how to repair that. You just have to be the diligent acquisition manager that brings in the right materials. And then the master builders of your body will take those right materials that you're muscle testing and you're bringing them in at the right amounts every day, and they will rebuild your body. You remember the principle. This is a God-engineered body, works best. This body works best with God-designed parts, and those are plants. You just need to know which ones they are. So we'll use plants to rebuild your damaged body. I want to do a quick reminder. You don't need this one. You've been doing this forever, I'm sure. Week after week, you've been ensuring your energy is flowing forward. You've been resetting it if it's not flowing forward with a yoga pose or with the 50 taps on opposite shoulders or opposite knees. You've been using self-muscle testing to go through all parts of your body functions and checking each day to ensure all my body functions are in line. And if they're not, going through your glands and your organs and your systems to make sure you've reset all of them, you cleared any blocks and made sure that they're all online. So for your skeletal system, before you start rebuilding a piece that's painful, make sure it's online and that the blocks are cleared. My skeletal system is online. Just check it. My skeletal system is online. Yes? Great. Are there any blocks I need to clear from my skeletal system? Yes, clear the blocks. Are there hidden blocks? Yes, clear the hidden blocks and then put back in whatever's needed. Reset if it needs resetting. Do those things before you start on materials because the energy needs to be flowing forward. The blocks need to be cleared for these materials to do more than just bring it back up to normal function. They need to repair completely. So you'll need those consistently. You might have to repeat clearing blocks every day for several weeks until you've got them all, because remember, they clump on any place that there was previous damage or a previous weak area. So be very persistent. Get to the bottom of your blocks. Make sure that they're all cleared. Now that you know your energy is flowing forward, now that you know all the blocks are cleared and you're online and your skeletal system is online and it's been consistently online, now, what materials are needed? We're going to walk through and talk deeply about each of these materials. Dr. Christopher's Complete Tissue and Bone Ointment and capsules or another form for the inside. So externally and internally, that's a critical group of elements there to rebuild any of this. He received that formula by inspiration and it works. But you can go through and you can test to make sure it works for you with muscle testing. We're going to go through mullein and why it's so important. And herbal calcium, how critical it is for all bone and cartilage rebuilds and for your overall acid-alkaline balance. And then an optional one that speeds the process for most people, and that's the cayenne heat ointment. Dr. Christopher's products. So first, complete tissue and bone. You're going to be using this externally and internally, and it has a few principles. Rubbing it on externally is done for 5+ minutes. I say 5 to 7 minutes. Do it for 10 if you don't start a timer. In other words, do it longer than you think it's needed. You're going to scoop out some of the complete tissue and bone ointment or use the massage oil. It's just an oil you can pour it in your hand. And you're going to rub it. Let's say it's a torn rotator cuff. You're going to rub it on that shoulder a full hand breadth in and a full hand breadth down. In other words, about 8 inches from the damaged area up and down. And you're going to rub that on for 5+ minutes, at least once a day, preferably 2 or 3 times a day. You can muscle test to see what your body needs in the amount of materials. Add materials every time it feels like it's starting to get dry at all. And then while I'm on this one, if you muscle test for deep heat, the cayenne heat ointment, you'll put it on second right after you've rubbed on the complete tissue and bone ointment or massage oil. Now, the body needs those materials on the outside to be rubbed in so that they move directly to the place and they have plenty of area to move in. Also, you'll want to take those internally. I have taken them internally and used them externally on every rebuild I've done for myself. Now, how to take it internally. Dr. Christopher's Complete Tissue and Bone comes in capsules. It comes in a syrup that's available in 4 or 16 ounce. By the way, the massage oil and the Complete Tissue and Bone ointment is available in both 4 and 16 ounce. So if you've got a big rebuild to do, ask for the larger size. The syrup, people ask me, does it taste terrible? Not horribly terrible. And there are some people that can't swallow capsules. It works fine. It's also available in bulk called BF&C, used to be called bone, flesh, and cartilage. So BF&C bulk as powder. There is one benefit to that. That powder has comfrey in it, and so it speeds the healing because comfrey is a cell proliferant. What if you have a foot or something that you can put in to a soak? You can actually buy the BF&C bulk cut. 20-minute simmer, let it cool down enough so you can put that foot or wrist or hand or whatever in it, and then put it in as a soak. Or if it's a long distance, like a whole back, or needs to be wrapped around a knee that's hard to rub because of the pain of some outside structural damage, you can do a fomentation with that same thing. We've used this. A fomentation is a rag soaked in that cut. I'll call it a fomentation. You'll think of it as a tea. It's a 20-minute simmered tea, but decoction is its proper term. You put a cloth in there, natural fiber cloth, wool, cotton, natural fiber. Soak it, bring it out, not so hot that you'll burn the skin, and then lay it on the back, for example. Lay it down the back, cover it with a piece of plastic that'll keep the moisture and the heat in, and then cover that with a warm or hot towel and maybe a heating pad to keep the heat there. And do that for about 20 to 30 minutes daily. That will speed the healing on the back. Now, speaking of scoliosis or back healing, when we've done a full distance the back, typically another person, a family member or somebody you trust, will rub in the massage oil or the ointment on that back for a good 10 minutes, all the way down the back. If it's damaged or herniated discs, or if it's scoliosis, anything like that. Anything that you need someone else's help on. You can also use a fomentation on the back. Like I described, it works well. Let's see, is there anything I've missed on complete tissue and bone? Muscle test for the right amounts and check daily for that right amounts, internally and externally. And don't skimp. You need to have enough of those so that they're actually doing the work. It might start small. Your muscle testing the first day or two may start, oh, I only need 2 capsules 3 times a day. And then it may zoom up to 8, 10, 12 capsules. Believe it. Your workers are trying to get enough materials to do a major rebuild, perhaps, and they need enough materials for that. The next item on our must-have list is mullein, or some people pronounce it mullein, M-U-L-L-E-I-N. You can do capsules or you can do mullein tea. Capsules work, they're not as fast. If you're taking it for pain of broken bones or pain shoulders or pain knee or pain back, use the tea. That's my advice. Only remember something. With the tea, you need to have the ability to strain it. So I'm going to demonstrate that real quick with materials that I use. I'm using a big teacup, and I'm going to need a strainer that fits my teacup. And all that is just a wire mesh strainer that fits the teacup. Now, on that strainer, I'm either going to use a cloth filter that's made for it. And you, I think, can find these. My wife made this one. You can tell it's well used. We use it all the time. But it fits around there. It's got a little bit of elastic on it that just keeps it in place. And then I take what I call a pinch size amount and put it so it about fills the cloth. That is put on the teacup, and then you pour the boiling water through that until it comes up to the edge of the cup. Just watch it, don't let it pour over. If you're using a paper filter, it might wick it a little bit more, so make sure that that's standing up and it's not too big and leaning over. It'll wick it all out. It'll wick the water back out again. And then after I've poured it clear full, I just put a little plastic top on it to keep it from losing its heat too fast. Let that steep for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then, or longer. Mullein doesn't hurt to let it steep 20 or 30 minutes. And then you take this out, shake the water off, and you've got a ready place to put that in your plastic or whatever top you just set over it. So we'll move those things out of the way. The other thing that I use sometimes with mine is I'll use a little bit of stevia to just sweeten it up. That is whole cut stevia that I use. I don't use the powders or the liquids that have often had other things added into them. I just put a little pinch, maybe a third the amount of the mullein, of whole cut stevia. Now, why mullein? Answered the how, now why? Mullein is amazing. Mullein as a plant relieves pain with no side effects. Let me tell the story right now, and it'll tie it all together. My wife, Winona, broke her wrist, shattered the tips of both balls, and broke the bone back about 2 inches from the tip. So it was up like this and cocked sideways. Extremely painful. We went to the emergency room. They pulled it out, set it in place. The tips were both broken. They said, you'll have to come back because it was a Friday night. They didn't have any ability for looking at it to see if it needed pinned or whatever that night. And just they stabilized it and then said, you'll have to come back and we'll pin it all together or see if it needs surgery. 90% sure it's going to need surgery. We said, we'll see. Because we knew about bone, flesh, and cartilage and how it helps with broken bones so much. What we didn't know at that time, and this is 7 or 8 years ago, is what to do for the pain. We knew that she was allergic to, had severe reactions to opioid pain relievers, that they actually made her extremely sick. What we didn't know is how to take care of it. We got home, she couldn't sleep. She finally says, I've got to have something. We got to fill the prescription and get the pain relievers. One dose, she was up the rest of the night throwing up and in pain, and said, that's not going to work. So we got digging through our herb books and found this one reference on mullein that says, mullein is an amazing pain reliever. It has narcotic strength pain relieving effects with no side effect, no addictive side effect or anything else. More stories on that another time, but we had some in the cupboard from my master herbalist training, and we made a cup of tea, and immediately, 20, 30 seconds after drinking that cup of tea, the pain was down, she could go to sleep, and we used it clear through the rebuild process. It speeds the rebuild, and the other benefit that mullein has is that mullein guides broken bones back into place. It slides them back where they're supposed to go, and she didn't need surgery to put those fractured pieces back in place. The great thing about the bone, flesh, and cartilage or complete tissue and bone formula is there's two plants in that break down calcification deposits and broken chips, and so that bone spurs and chips of bones and stuff like that are broken down and are safely carried out of the body instead of continuing to cause damage. And so no challenge, that healed extremely fast. The other benefit of mullein is that it hydrates and makes the surface of the cartilage and the bone slick so that it can slide back into place. It is a wonderful plant and absolutely essential for any joint rebuild or broken bone healing. Now, calcium. What is the calcium that's needed for the body? It's herbal calcium, plant-based calcium. Dr. Christopher's combination called herbal calcium capsules is wonderful and amazing. It also comes in liquid format. It comes in a kitty calc formula also, or in bulk powder, or in bulk tea called calcium tea with comfrey. I love the bulk tea. I drink it every day. Not because I love the taste of it, but because my body needs calcium every day. It's a 20-minute simmer tea because it's made out of roots and stalks and heavier things. So it's 20-minute simmer to get all the benefits in it. I do the same thing on that calcium tea that I do on the mullein, only I do it differently. Because I make a quart or two at a time in a big pot, I'll put a quarter cup of the bulk calcium cut in there, bring it to boil, put the lid on, drop it back down to a bare simmer, turn on the timer for 20 minutes. When that timer goes off at the end of 20 minutes, I turn the heat off, take the lid off for a few seconds, put a pinch of peppermint, a pinch of stevia leaf in there, and then put the lid back on and let it steep for another however long, 10 minutes at least, but sometimes I'll wait until several hours later when it's cooled off to strain it. And then you can drink it hot or you can drink it cold. And I put mine in the fridge so I can have it every day to use. That's calcium, and it's absolutely critical. And I take it as calcium tea, but it works as capsules, it works as liquid, whatever way works for you. What about the cayenne deep heat? It used to be called cayenne deep heat, and it's called cayenne heat now. Comes in ointment and in massage oil. I mentioned before that you put it on after the complete tissue and bone. Why do I call it optional? It does speed up the process a ton. But some people's skin is sensitive and won't tolerate that cayenne. So test it on your skin first, or muscle test and see if yours will work. What I typically do is I will rub on either the massage oil of the complete tissue and bone or the ointment, and then I'll use either the massage oil or the ointment on top of that, just enough to drive it in, push it in deeper, and it speeds up the healing process with that. Now, we've talked about the things that are needed to repair any skeletal joint, back, or neck damage. These are the materials. And people are amazed. You mean it'll work on my knee and my shoulder? It'll work on my ankle and my wrist? Yes, it will. Using Dr. Christopher's Complete Tissue and Bone, or BFNC, internally and externally. Absolutely using mullein in the highest amounts that your body tells you it needs it. Absolutely using herbal calcium or calcium tea, calc tea, as Dr. Christopher calls it, and optional cayenne deep heat. I have a 2-page document that outlines each one of those, talks about the ingredients in it, and a few of the principles that are critical, the 6-in-1 principle, the cleanliness principle, the sufficiency principle. If you need that 2-page document, it'll be available to you. And I have had such good success with this formula working for myself, for my wife, for clients. This process works for all of those. Back damage, scoliosis, shoulder, knee, wrist, ribs. Oh, I didn't tell you my rib story. We'll close with that. I fell, broke 9 things. 3 of those were broken ribs. And this has been a number of years ago, but I'm not young anymore. I'm in my 60s, so falling 20 feet causes some breaks. Anyway, those 3 broken ribs, Mullen was fantastic. It let me sleep. I still had to sit up because you can't have pressure going down on it, but only had to sit up to sleep in a lounge chair for 3 weeks, and then it was healed enough to lay down. For all of these kinds of rebuilds, you might want to remember to take in the other materials also, in addition to Mullen. For my ribs and for that many broken bones, I used alfalfa to get in the micro minerals, or you can use Jurassic green, so test for alfalfa and Jurassic green. Also, for broken ribs or anything that causes muscles to spasm and to close up, test for kava kava. K-A-V-A, K-A-V-A. Kava kava is a wonderful, natural, plant-based muscle relaxer that's also valuable for depression and anxiety, but it works beautifully for pain and relaxing the muscles and works wonderful in this kind of rebuild. I know you'll enjoy rebuilding the wholesome life way with proper nutrition and proper amounts of all of those materials.